Hi, my name is Dan Harding, Senior Managing Editor of Power Motor Yacht. I'm here with Northern Lights to talk generators and refits. Do you mind giving me a couple examples or a couple reasons boaters might be ready for a refit?
Sure. Yeah, well, you know, thank you for asking. I mean, in the generator business, it's we always have an interesting problem, which is that, you know, the generator is, if it's running well, usually doesn't get a lot of attention. You know, you expect your generator to be running in the background, working for you. So sometimes it gets a little less attention than other systems on board that are a little more visible and a little more prominent. You know, there's some real basic things you can look for. One of them is your oil consumption. Are you burning a lot more oil than usual? Are you seeing discharge in the oil pan that's out of the ordinary? Are you burning more fuel? Are you having any issues there? But you know, the maintenance items are pretty basic. Change your oil, change your oil on schedule, and maintain your cooling system. Those are really the big things. On a Northern Lights generator, for instance, this is a heat exchanger cooled generator that doesn't use any zincs. So every once in a while, you want to check your heat exchanger, make sure it's cleaned out. Those are some very basics. That's going to keep you from overheating. That's going to keep you from a lot of those shutdown scenarios that will be directly related to just overall neglect over the course of months and years. So those are really some of the basics. Are your major components starting to fail? That's a big sign. Clearly, you've got two major pieces of any generator. You've got the electrical end and you've got the engine side of it. There's a lot of good engine guys out there. There's a lot of good electrical guys out there. Not everybody understands how both systems work together. So you want to be sure that your maintenance and all of your upkeep, your service is done by an authorized generator guy. Sometimes your electrical end will give out. Sometimes your engine will give out. That's just the nature of the beast. But if you're looking for a single source for your parts and your service support, try to find a guy that understands the diesel side and the electrical side. You're going to save yourself a lot of effort in the long run.
That's a great point. So for somebody that's in the market for a new used boat, you know, what are some warning signs that the generator they're interested in isn't up to snuff?
That's a great scenario, because oftentimes you'll see someone shopping for a used boat. They'll look at the hours on the generator and see an older boat with very low hours on the generator and think that they struck gold. Okay? Maybe you did, but it's not the number of hours, it's how those hours were maintained. So, you know, a lot of people will tell you that a boat doesn't get old from overuse, it gets old from underuse. So if your generator has been sitting for extended periods of time, that's going to be a problem. We try to engineer as much rubber and plastic out of our generators as possible, but there are still gaskets, O-rings, hoses, belts, and things that just get brittle and will tend to crack over time, creating leaks, creating other problems that you're going to run into, and that's all directly related to underuse over time. So you want to try to make sure that you've got, whether the generator has low hours or high hours, try to get some service history. Typically, people that have been operating their boats are going to keep it. The better maintained boats will have better maintained service logs. It's like getting a Carfax on a used vehicle. You want to check those maintenance logs and make sure that everything's been maintained properly, hopefully by authorized dealers, definitely with genuine parts. Those are some of the things you're really going to want to look for when you're looking to evaluate the maintenance criteria that someone was using to maintain that boat. So high hours, especially on Northern Lights, that's not necessarily a bad sign, because oftentimes the high hours in a lower extended period of time is someone that's been running that boat hard. They've been loading their generator, which is another very important point. They've been loading their generator and they've been hitting all their maintenance intervals, all of which are very easy to find in any of our owners' manuals. You know, that loading issue that I brought up is also very important. If you've got low hours on a generator, you sometimes want to assume the worst, which is that low hours probably meant someone was coming down to their boat once a month, starting it up, turning on the generator, but not applying any load. As any salty old boater is going to tell you, diesels like to be run hard. That is absolutely true of generators. So when you turn them on, you fire them up, you're putting hours on them, you want the majority of those hours to be under 50% or more of your rated load. That's going to keep that engine running happily for a much longer period of time. It's going to blow out some of that soot and other particulate matter that's very commonly associated with diesel engines. But a good running diesel that's not putting out smoke and soot is one that's being loaded and maintained all the time. So if you can get a feel for how all of those factors played into the life of your generator, you'll realize that hours aren't as important as the care and attention that was paid to the equipment on board the boat. And that's probably going to be reflected in other systems on board as well, but it's especially true of a generator.
Right, that makes sense. All right, so let's say you get a new used boat and low hours, it's time to replace it.
Yep.
What are some of the first steps in replacing the generator?
Sure. Well, any refit project of any size is a major undertaking. On the generator side of things, the first thing I would take a look at is, based on the way you have been operating the boat, how was the sizing of your generator? Was it too much power? Was it not enough power? That's question number one. Question number two is it just a generator replacement, or are you adjusting other systems on board the boat? If you're saying, I had the right size generator, but through the course of this refit, I haven't been getting cold enough and I've been operating in hotter and hotter, more tropical environments. So I'm going to put a larger air conditioning system in. That directly relates to the fact that you're probably going to want to also look at the sizing of your generator. At the same time, you could be going from traditional lighting to LED lighting. And in that case, you're going to save some of that power consumption because you're going to more energy efficient lighting equipment. It's also true of appliances and other electronics on board. As technology has improved, power consumption of a lot of those systems has come down. So you've got the more efficient components on board, but you've also got more people increasing their air conditioning capacity, for example, or adding things like thrusters, zero-speed stabilizers, or other equipment that are going to increase your need for power on board. So I'm always going to recommend that you sit down with a power generation specialist, pencil it out, look at all your equipment on board. One of the typical mistakes is people add up every power consumer they have on board and they assume that that's how big their generator needs to be. Well, you're not always going to have every switch flipped to the on position whenever you're operating your boat. So you're going to want to be realistic about, let's say I have 20 kilowatts of power consumers on board. Well, realistically, how often are you going to have all of those flipped on? Are you always going to be running your air conditioning, your washer and dryer, your dishwasher, everything at the same time? I guarantee that you're probably not going to be doing that all at once. So be realistic about your operating profile and try to find that happy medium of maybe that generator's not going to handle everything on at once, but if you're just a little bit smarter about your power management, you can have a smaller generator that's going to be more fuel efficient and is going to be more adequately loaded at all times, thereby prolonging the life of everything you got on board.
Awesome.